All right, guys, we're here in Coffeyville, Kansas. Currently standing outside the Dalton Defenders Museum. I was here a few years ago when I did the Route 66 thing. They're closed today, so let's go see what we can find out. I met the gal over here at the Chamber of Commerce when I was shooting some photos a little bit earlier. And she said, come on back, and she would give me a tour of the bank where the Daltons robbed, and ultimately it was their last bank robbery as they were shot in the alley just across the way there.
So,
all right.
So I'm Samantha Kudrick, and I am the tourism director for Visit Coffeyville. And this is the old Condon Bank. So this is one of the banks that the Daltons tried to rob back in 1892. They took on this project to restore it in 1992 at the 100-year anniversary after the raid to get it as close back to the original. So not everything in here is exactly as it was, but again, they were able to bring some things from Coffeyville or from the surrounding area from that same time period. So the bank itself was built 1890, and again, the raid was 1892, so really shortly after that. But there's some different photographs over here. Unfortunately, the First National Bank, which was the other banks that the Daltons tried to rob, unfortunately it burnt down 3 years after the raid. But this picture here kind of gives you a better idea. So you have our building here that we're in today, Isham's Hardware, which I don't know if you got to go to the hardware store yet or not.
Not yet.
Okay, so they have been there since 1870 and have had their doors open since, so it's pretty amazing. And they were actually the main supplier of the guns to the citizens that day, so they're pretty important to us. So Isham's Hardware, they're in their original location, and the First National is right about where their wall ends. So if you look out the window here, you'll see like the silver car and the maroon truck, right? That sidewalk area facing this way, that would have been the front of the First National.
Okay.
So again, that's kind of what the storefront would look like up here.
Yeah.
And again, it burnt down 1895. When it burnt down, they actually built on our office area back when you first came through. So that was built on after the raid. Now these doors, they're not original to us, but the museum does have the original opening to the vault. But this is the bank that they told the Daltons supposedly it was the safe inside was on a time lock. So they were trying to tell them that it wouldn't unlock for 10 more minutes. So this is the one where they decided to wait for that to unlock.
Go on, open it.
Sorry, but it's on a time lock.
A time lock?
That's right. It won't open till 9:30. You've got a 12-minute wait.
Did you get a chance to go to the museum or no?
Not yet. I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay,
so.
okay. Because yeah, I know they close at 4, so they're probably going to close up, but they open at 10. So.
I did make it over to the other museum when it was.
Okay, so here's the story. So this one, this actually is the one that moved over here. So
Oh,
same
it's the
museum.
same?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one is their old building. They just moved into their new location like less than a month ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So same museum. It's just they've moved everything.
The old safety deposit boxes.
Yes. Yeah.
Huh. Now, are those original, or do you know?
I don't know. I don't know that they're original to our building. I can't find any documentation on who donated them, where they're from, anything. But they've been in here since I was here, so I'm just not sure on that. Here's a picture of the front at the time of the raid, what the front of this building looked like. So very similar. The little awning thing is not there anymore, but for the most part, the building itself looks pretty much the same. So the museum has the original front panel to the one that was in here at the time of the raid, but this one came out of a bank about 9 miles west of us from a little bank in Tyro, Kansas, and it is from 1890, so it is very similar, but just not the original. So again, this is what the original one that was in this building looked like.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So yeah. But yeah, of course, some of the pictures of them holding them up and laying dead. Probably the most famous photo you see.
The little boy peeking through the fence there.
And I can never remember his name, but the museum always, he was a 10-year-old little boy, and I know they'll have his name when you go tomorrow, but it's always interesting. Whenever I see that picture, I just always think of like his mom probably being like, "No, don't you go down there," you know, and then him being in that photo like, "Oh, well."
Because who listens to mom,
Oh,
right?
I know, right?
Yeah. Well, here we are at the Condon Bank, and that's the last bank that the Daltons robbed. This is where it all took place. October 5th, 1892. 5 mounted men rode into Coffeyville, Kansas from the west. It was around 9 a.m. in the morning, and the streets were already filled with farmers and business people. The riders hitched up their horses in the alley and proceeded on foot towards the plaza. Grant Dalton, Bill Powers, and Dick Broadwell crossed the plaza, and the trio entered the Condon Bank. Meanwhile, Bob and Emmett Dalton, who were walking behind, strided past the Condon, crossed Union Street, and entered the First National Bank. In spite of the strangers' fake beard disguises, several locals recognized them. The town's Iceman, Cyrus Lee, runs into Isham Hardware, shouting, "The Daltons are robbing the bank!" Realizing it was not a joke, citizens quickly armed themselves at the 2 hardware stores and other businesses. Grant Dalton demands that the money in the Condon safe be placed in 2 bushel wheat sacks. "The safe is on a time lock. It won't open till 9:30, says cashier Charles Ball. Grant asks, "Well, what time is it now?" The cashier looks at his pocket watch and says, "It's only 9:20, even though the wall clock shows that it's 9:40. Grant accepts the cashier's words, saying, "We can wait." Meanwhile, responding to the shouting robbers, Luther Perkins, owner of the Condon Bank, comes downstairs brandishing 2 pistols. When he opens up the northwest door, he meets Dick Broadwell's Winchester. Perkins slams the door and quickly backpedals upstairs. Inside the vault sits $40,000, and the time lock story was just a lie. It'd been off since 8 a.m. From 80 yards down the street, a store owner opens fire, pumping bullets into the Condon Bank. The first shot pierces the plate glass window and hits Powers. "I'm shot! I can't use my arm!" the robber cries and clutches his left arm. Other guns in the plaza cut loose until it becomes a shower of bullets and then a storm. In the First National Bank, Bob and Emmett Dalton also encountered the crowd. In addition to 3 bank employees, there were 3 customers plus 2 more that blundered in after the robbery had begun. In spite of some planky resistance, the teller claims he didn't know the combination to the safe. Bob ferrets out the hidden cash, and Emmett scoops up $20,000 into a bushel bag, and the 2 prepare to leave. The outlaws herd their hostages out the front door. 2 citizens on the sidewalk fire at the bandits from point-blank range, but miss. 1 bullet nearly hits cashier Tom Ayers. 2 Daltons realize that they're outgunned, so they head back into the First National Bank. At this point, they decide to try to head out the back door. Lucas Baldwin, a 23-year-old clerk, snatches up a pistol from Ism Hardware store and dashes out the back door, hoping to gain an advantage on the robbers. At the rear of the First National Bank, Baldwin meets the 2 Daltons coming out the back door with Shepard in front of them. Bob raises his Winchester and reportedly says as he gives fire, "I have to get this man." Baldwin falls with a fatal bullet just below his heart. At this point, the 2 Daltons abandon Shepard and run north looking for a place to cut across the plaza to their horses. Stopping near the corner of 8th and Union, Bob peers south and sees 2 ambushers crouching behind the First National Bank. Bob raises his Winchester and fires, felling George Cuban and Charles Brown. Cashier Ayers, who had also grabbed a rifle at Isham's, knelt down behind the harnesses and took a bead on the outlaws. Bob Dalton spied him out and shot first, hitting Ayers just below the left eye from a 70-yard shot. At just about the same time, a bullet hits Charlie Gump, one of the first locals to spread the alarm. Another defender in front of Isham Hardware is also hit by the ricochet and must be carried inside to safety. Dazed and bewildered, Grat and his crew grab whatever money they can find. Grat stuffs $1,100 of currency into his vest and they exit the Condon, with heads tucked down just like facing a strong wind as they run for their lives. Grat and Powers are hit almost immediately, but keep on their feet and continue running. Powers tries to duck into a doorway, but the doorway is locked and he keeps running with a slug in his back. Grat scoots down behind an old oil wagon parked in the alley and shoots at Ism Hardware through the stairwell. Marshal Charles Conley cuts across the vacant lot on 9th Street hoping to intercept the robbers. Unfortunately, Grant is behind him in the staircase and levels his Model 86 Winchester from 20 feet away. Grant blasts Conley in the back, killing him instantly. As Grat makes another run for his horse, two other townsmen, John Clare and Carrie Seaman, peer into the alley. When Grat turns to monitor his back trail, Clare fires, hitting the outlaw in the throat. The slug breaks Dalton's neck and he falls in a heap. Dick Broadwell makes it safely to the Long Bell lumberyard and he finds temporary cover. He shoots and kills the horses hitched to the oil tanker so he can fire unobstructedly at his tormentors. Broadwell somehow secures his horse, but before he can clear the alleys, Seaman and Clare catch him in their sights. The bandit reels in the saddle as buckshot and rifle slugs tear into his body. He hangs onto his saddle horn and makes it down the alley, disappearing around the corner. Incredibly, up to this point, Bob and Emmett have so far escaped being hit. Now let's get to the horses, Bob tells Emmett. The rest ought to be waiting there by this time. As the last two bandits dash for their horses, Bob glances up to the high window along the alley and takes a bullet to the chest. He stumbles across the alley, sits down atop a pile of cobblestone stacked beside the jail. Bob staggers to the corner of the stable, sees Clare, and fires twice, but misses both times. Clare waits for a clear shot, takes aim, and hits the outlaw leader in the chest, sending him sprawling to the alley. Still carrying the money, Emmett has been hit in the body. Another bullet has broke his arm, and yet a third slug hits his cartridge belt. Incredibly, Emmett's mount is still standing. Emmett swings onto the saddle, but is immediately hit several more times by rifle fire. He reins his mount directly into the direction of the shooting, riding straight up to his brother. Emmett leans down to give Bob a hand up, but dying Bob whispers, "There's no use." And later, Emmett adds these perhaps wishful words, "Goodbye, Emmett, don't surrender and die game." At that moment, Carrie Seaman steps clear and fires both barrels of a shotgun into Emmett's back. The last Dalton hits the floor of Death Alley face first. So here's a little interesting tidbit that most people don't know, is that not over 15 guns were actively engaged during the fight on either side. The engagement lasted about 10 minutes. 8 persons were killed and 3 were wounded. 4 of the townspeople with 4 of the outlaws. The interesting part is it was discovered by checking the revolvers of all the Dalton Gang members. None of their revolvers were used during the battle. Everything was pretty much done in a rifle shotgun contest. So that's an interesting little fact that I was able to discover too. Anyways, let's move on. Okay, so here we are at the Elmwood Cemetery. This is where the Daltons were buried after they lost their lives in the alleyway there on October 5th, 1892. Pretty historic location here in Coffeyville. As you can see, over here we have the graves of Bob Dalton, Grat Dalton, and Bill Powers, who died in the alleyway there on October 5th of 1892. See them here. And of course, Emmett Dalton survived somehow, and he had a phenomenal amount of bullets in him, but somehow he lived through it all and ended up going to prison and later getting a pardon. So he came back and bought his brothers a dignified headstone. But these were a few of the people, townspeople, that also died in the shootout. And a little bit of information there. Charles Brown, Charles Conley, George Cuban, and Lucas Baldwin. And of course, the after effects of the shootout on the Dalton Gang. So there's quite a few other players in the cemetery, of course. You got the Dalton Gang, Frank Dalton. You got John Cuban, who created the first left and right cowboy boot. Seems kind of silly, but true story. Charles Brown worked at Cuban's boot, and he was one of the defenders killed during the Dalton raid. And then Captain David Stewart Elliott was the editor of the Coffeyville Journal during the time of the Dalton raid. One other interesting thing you'll find when you visit the graves is there is a 1-inch circular bar that stands in front of the gravestone. It's said that it was the hitching post that they used to tie their horses to during the raid. And while it leads you to believe that this is the true story, it was later found out that it's not original. Hope you liked the video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya!